Intrepid people of Earth. It's going to be a minute or two before Dave completely adjusts. The energy that is me is quite different from some of the other energies. I'd say that it's a little bit further out, or even on a wider plane, if you will. Spoke earlier of Abraham Hicks. It's a little bit like she is focusing on a narrow plane, and Dave is connecting to a very wide plane, very wide, and will of a different kind of light. It will take him a moment, but we are glad to speak through him to you. Really very satisfied with your endeavors to come to speak to us. We applaud you for this work. What would you like to know?
Well, first of all, thank you for joining us, and we already understand that you're from Sirius, the Sirius star system. Are you from a planet?
Well, a planet is not exactly the right word. You might say we're more like from a region that is, we are not necessarily this sort of embodied alien that you might imagine in an image. More like a people living sort of in the atmosphere as a collective, much as the collectives you've been speaking to before were just a sort of collective out in space in a different place. Of course, the space is relative and time is relative and the distance is relative, much as what you were discussing. Something is true in two different universes at the same time. This is pretty complicated to explain, but we would rather just say that we are from Sirius, the atmosphere around Sirius.
So you are a conscious energy collective.
Yes, that's quite right.
Okay, thank you. So you are communicating to us directly from that place, or do you have, again, you presumably don't need, therefore, craft, vessels to travel?
No, we do not need vessels to travel. It is sort of, you might call it passe for us to do such actions. There's no need to travel since we can speak with you in the particular way that we're speaking with you now without any kind of ship. One thing Dave noted in one of his videos is that he actually went camping in a place near his home. And when he got there, he was completely ready for UFO contact. As night fell, however, he completely changed his mind. He was actually quite terrified because he heard some things outside of his tent that he believed to be us. It wasn't us, but he believed it to be. But the message that he was saying was, not ready. I am not ready to meet face to face. It is much better for us to communicate in this way because it's not frightening. We'll just give you an example. When we showed up for Dave, we showed up in the sort of suit that looked a bit like your movie where Mars attacks. It was a sort of little in joke for us that is, we knew that Dave would get the joke and he smiled when he saw us. That is how he sort of knows that we can be trusted. The universe has a sense of humor, and if you encounter something that is lifeless or dark, it is not in the best way. It is best to be fun, and that is to entice you by letting you know that we also laugh, and that those who laugh are in the know or in the good place to be contacted.
So you have no physical form anyway. So, but there would be nothing to see to fear.
It would be more like we can have physical form if we want to. Think of some of the people who have come to Earth as sort of collectives of energy. We might put out any religious leader that is a sort of collective of energy that came at a certain time in a human body. That collective is us. It is little sparks from different ends of the universe that have been collected together to deliver a message. We, that is all of us, that is those who are sort of in the vein of working with Earth, we cannot sit and be completely passive, but at the same time, we must let your growth continue. It is like a sort of rule of non-interference. However, we can send some beings, if you will, that can act upon Earth to guide and help you.
Okay, so you said working with Earth, so this is obviously one of your objectives, something that you do,
Yes.
but you have a policy of non-interference. Are you allowed to instruct and guide us with information? If we ask
Yeah.
questions, you can answer. Yeah.
Yes, as is
We,
demonstrated. We would not say that there's a policy, for example, of non-interference. We cannot interfere directly. That is, we cannot go and stop the war. We would like to, but there's something that you must learn through the policy of war. There is, however, and this is to some degree reflected in the law of one, which Dave mentioned, which is a little bit more accurate than how he was told. But for example, Abraham Lincoln, he was not a totally organic form. He was a person. However, he was also a collection of energies that evolved into the President of the United States. This is a sort of process that all of you have gone through. All of you are collections of energies that have come to Earth at this time to experience the Earth in this way. Yes, we can communicate. There's nothing wrong with that. It does not harm you. It is just a question of you taking in the information and going in the right direction. We certainly will not communicate with those who have dark intents. So you should be proud of yourself that we are in agreement that your intentions are good here and that it will benefit humankind.
Thank you.
We are not interfering with your free will. Your free will has chosen to come speak to us, and we are choosing to respond because we consider your beingness ready for this information.
Well, I think all of us in this group came together to expand our knowledge and understanding of the universe and the way it works and the way we function within it. So that's really one of the objectives of this group. We were having a discussion before Dave made the connection with you, and we were having a discussion about death as a transitional process.
Yes.
And is it okay to ask you some questions about this process so that we can further our understanding?
Yes, we are ready.
Okay, so if I give you my understanding, maybe you can point out where I may be in error and elaborate maybe with better information. So my understanding is that we all choose the manner of our departure. Is that a fact? My death is predestined. I've already decided at some level when and where I'll die. Is that true?
We would say this is largely true. There are things one might do in one's life that would bring death sooner or postpone it later. So someone might come to the earth with the intention of living till 90. However, they do things during their life which prevent that from happening. Perhaps they become an addict or engage in risky behaviors. It is not as if the free will stops being free will the moment you are born. You still have the free will to alter your responses to things. You have the free will to not choose destructive actions. So it is not 100% completed. That is, there are many of you who will leave at exactly the time that you have chosen. It is exactly as it should be. You are learning in a sort of way that is planned in a way. There are others, however, who will turn away from their plan, fight against their plan, and invent some other plan. This may alter things. It may alter things so that their life is longer or shorter.
Thank you. And when the time comes for us to make that transition, again, my understanding is that we are guided or assisted in the process by beings from the other side, and they may be people that we've shared relationships with on Earth, like siblings or parents or good friends. My understanding is also that the transition process largely supports the belief structure of the person that's passing. So, for example, if I'm a deeply religious person, maybe a Catholic, when I transition, if I expect there to be a God and to be met at the gates of heaven, this is an experience that I may have. This is my understanding that part of the transitional process is to feed my or support my belief structure so that I don't undergo a shock when I transition and be confronted with something that I never thought. Now, again, that's my understanding. Is
This
this correct or?
this is reflected perhaps in some books or audio you've heard. For example, Journey
Yes.
of Sirius would reflect this perfectly well, and it is not inaccurate. This is precisely as things occur. However, it is not 100% the same. That is, when Dave has people transition, it is always different. So, for example, some people, when they go to the moment of their passing, when he's doing his past life regression, will go in a particular way. And then he will go to the next lifetime and it will be a surprise. They will go in a different way. So to some degree, it does depend on your beliefs as you leave the body, if you will. Just to some degree, however, it is not 100% that way. So there might be an initial experience. You as a Catholic, you will see the Lord. And once you've seen the Lord, you will go over your life and your sins and think about this in the particular way. Believe me, when you get there, it is not like the Lord you read in the books. It is much more soft, let us say. That is, we don't stand in judgment and tell you all of your sins and decide where you're going next. You are the agent. You will stand before us and you will confess and you will say, I shouldn't have done that. I could have been a better husband, etc. You will go on and criticize yourself at length. It is we who will turn to you and say, okay, take it easy. People made mistakes. What have you learned? What would you do differently next time? Much as a very good parent might do. But some people, this is not quite as necessary. Some people will get to the heavenly gates, if you will, and they will say to themselves, well, I have done all of the things that I said I would done during this lifetime. I get an A plus and I get to walk to the next step, and you simply will. There is no need to have you go through a psychological process and observation. There's no need for you to identify certain religious cues so that your transition is better. These are just markers. That is, it is a little bit confusing once you pass from the lifetime and you know how to have a body and you need to know where to go. If you have existed in a life where you have done some terrible things, you may not wish to go to the light. Dave has often transitioned such entities who are afraid of the judgment. They are afraid that they will confront themselves for something that they have done, just as an example. So they will hang out and wait and not really transition for some time. Therefore, we have to create different methods for people to get to the light. It is useful, for example, when somebody like Dave talks to these entities, he's very gentle and kind and goes towards the light. He tries to convince them that there is beauty out there and that they will not be judged, and that the feeling of love that they had once is one that they can achieve again if they go to the light. This is just one method of getting people to the light. There are humans who, while they sleep, have the job of directing people to the light as well. They might actually show up for an individual as that person and say, here, I'm loving, I will help you. Take my hand, I will bring you to the light. No reason for such confusion. And some of them, perhaps, they're totally a-religious through their life, and they really will not understand what's going on. Generally, the minute their life is over, they say, ah, yes, the light, I forgot about that. Perhaps it was necessary for me to be an atheist all my life, that's fine. But now I have seen the light and I know everything. Because that is mostly what happens. At some point, you know everything, or almost everything. It is just a question of getting you to that point where you're ready to connect. We will use almost any method. The image of the devil, we will use churchgoers, all of these things, we will find ways to allow you to see the light. And when we say allow, that is, you are disallowing it sometimes as you leave the body, because you are subject to a great deal of confusion, or you have ascribed to the beliefs that you achieved during life. So we must use some of those beliefs to sort of usher you in the right direction. But such beliefs would, to some degree, fall away because, as I've said, you go to the light, and when you go to the light, the wrong things sort of disappear. That is, you will take the things from your Catholic Church that are actually true, and you will retain them. So, for example, if your church involves love and the idea of love, you will retain that information. On the other hand, the social hierarchies, which are of no use on the other side, they will disappear, and you will be there with the true aspects of particular religions or beliefs, and you will leave the others behind. It is a sort of like a play. For a while, you will be on the stage performing in a particular way. You will play the role of Banquo, for example, in Shakespeare. But after you play this role for a while, you will leave the stage, and then you will go and have a drink with the other actors and become an actor. You will take on a new role. Perhaps after this, you will go home to your spouse and you will be in the role of spouse. Perhaps you will be a lover or a parent or something else. All of these are sort of roles, and we've chosen Shakespeare in particular because he has said, all the world is a stage. And indeed, this is the case to a great degree. This doesn't mean the things that are happening to you are not real. They are very real. But you came to the earth as a particular person with particular height, abilities, and tendencies and preferences, and that adds to the role that you will play. The rest of the role that you will play is sort of manufactured to some degree by you as you move through an environment. So if something is always true during your life, if you always feel kindness towards those who are experiencing unhappiness, that will set a pattern in a way where you are a kind person. It is not without influence. However, to some degree, you have come to the earth with particular abilities and limitations. And you will play out that role in a way, just as different actors might play a role in Shakespeare in a very different way. So we don't want to take out the element of choice here. There are choices, but there are also things that are chosen before you are born.
Thank you. Very interesting. You mentioned in that explanation several times the process of having departed this body, moving towards the light. So I have a picture of some interim state or place. Is this the astral plane? Or, I mean, I have rather a muddled imagery when it comes to different levels and layers of, let's say, reality. When you talk about moving to the light, in my mind, I'm thinking this is where this is the spirit realm. Yeah. So moving to the light, is this the spirit realm? Is this?
You can say this. All of these terms are just terms. They're just ways of understanding things. So if everything is the light, then what does it mean to move towards the light? There's light in each of you, but there's also light in spirit. It is a little bit non-physical. It is more like a feeling than an actual physical place. This is almost impossible to understand because although you have feelings, you have not experienced non-physicality. If you were just a set of feelings and you went out into the universe, where would you go? You would go towards the feeling that is the light. So it is perhaps useful for you to see this in a physical way as a sort of layers. But at the same time, this would be inaccurate. As you were mentioning, to atoms might have exactly the same experience in a completely different universe at the same time. So are those two atoms one and the same? Yes. Are they separate? Yes. Are they experiencing the same thing at the same time? Yes. So where is the space between them if they are indeed the same?
There is no space between them.
There is no space between them indeed, and there is no space between you and the light. Although at the same time, you as a human will experience this distance. We understand these are extremely vague concepts, and we don't wish to confuse you or make things more difficult. But the nature of where things are is completely relative, as Einstein, whom you've mentioned, figured out. It is completely relative to where you are and how you are. We have the ability to be in two places at the same time. So we're speaking through Dave, but we are also out in Sirius doing what we do in Sirius. So there is no distance between Dave and us. At the same time, his physical body in a physical way is quite distant from us. So where is the physicality there? It is a contradiction, we understand, that things are in a place, things are on Dave's desk in a place, but at the same time, with the correct abilities, those things could unite. That is, the pen and the laptop could become one if we had particular abilities. We do. You, on your physical plane at this time, do not. So are they one and the same? Are the energies that are those two things different? Really? It is extremely complicated, and we apologize for not being able to make it less complicated. But we find that sometimes when people try to create a sort of framework for these things, that lends itself to misunderstanding and hierarchy. And hierarchy and misunderstanding are, of course, to be avoided.
It's just that I have a picture in my mind that sometimes when people transition, they don't go towards the light. There may be things, there may be reasons in their psyche that hold them back. Maybe they're not ready to go and they've transitioned, but they're not ready to go to the light. So they are in some plane of existence that is, let's say, between worlds. I don't know another way of describing this, but this is a valid state, is it not?
That is a physical way of understanding this, and it is not in act.
So there are different planes of existence.
Yes.
Is there a number of planes of existence, or is it an infinitive number planes of existence?
Yes.
It's infinitive.
Yes.
Okay. And we can choose where we project ourselves?
Yes, to a degree. Those who have certain knowledge can do so. Those who were without the knowledge cannot.
Okay, this is an area that I'm really interested in. For many years, I've tried to practice astral projection, to project my consciousness outside of my body onto another level of existence. This is possible, yes?
Yes, it is possible.
Is there a reason, can you see, in my journey that this would be denied me, where this may be something that Carl sitting here is interested to do, but on a higher level, I'm to be denied this experience? Is this possible? I ask the question because I've been trying to do this for many years and I've succeeded several times, but every time I succeed, more obstacles are put on my path and it becomes increasingly more difficult. So instead of in my daily life, if I practice something, I get better at it. In this instance, the more I practice, the worse I get. Can you explain that? Are you allowed to give me information?
Yes, we are
Fantastic.
We are now allowed to give you this information. It is interesting that you would ask such a question, because it is almost like we want to whisper in your ear, here's the answer. This is the secret. And the secret, Carl, is that you needed to do work on Earth. That is, in order to assist others, to speak to us, you had to have your feet firmly planted on the ground. That is, before you came to this planet to a degree, a large degree, you wanted to contact with us, but you agreed to some degree to be the role of the man who stands on the earth and asks the questions. If you and Dave were both channeling right now at this moment, there would be little information that would be useful because there would be no person asking the question. We emphasize the word person, human. You're putting things in a human context. So you are reaching for the stars, Carl. You are going as far as you want, and this is exactly as it should be. However, we continue to remind you of the importance of your role. That is, you who desire to speak to spirit, but must do so with others in a particular way to accomplish it. You are the interlocutor, and we would not have it in any other way. This is not a punishment or a decision on our own or a lack of ability. This is our desire that you work in a particular place, in a particular way. This group that you are working with could not be possible without those sitting here. Each person adds something very significant to this work. And we would say that what you are adding is something very interesting. You are adding the intellectual or analytical questions that people would like to know the answers to. Dave could not ask himself these questions. He could not ask us these questions in the state where he is right now. It simply would not be possible. You have other gifts and skills that are very useful in assisting us, and others do not have those skills. Dave would not be able to do what you are able to do technically. And therefore, our information, what we are being created here, would not get out. So we understand your desire. However, we want to let you know that you're doing exactly what you agreed to do before you came here. Continue with your desire, because without such desire, you wouldn't be here and you wouldn't be helping. We can tell you that this is, to some degree, temporary. There will become a time when you are more able to project. However, there are things that we need you to do. And when we say we can include you, Carl. You also wished to do certain things when you came into this life. So you perform, again, a role, a very important role here. And we want you to take a good deal of pride in doing this, because this is exactly what you said you would do. You said in advance before your life, I will be very, very attracted to this kind of work. I will really want to do this work. And in my desire to do this work, I will learn a lot about doing the work. And then I will assist. I will assist both the spirits that speak to you now, and I will also assist the humans who are on the earth. This is an important role, Carl, and we really, really want to emphasize that. However, it is sometimes the case that we wanted to give you a glimmer. We wanted to show you what it was like a little bit. And when we say we, again, we include you. But we did not want you to always be going there, because there are already channelers channeling. There aren't people with your, let us call them intellectual gifts, asking questions of the channeler. There are not parties which wish to know the universe in the way that you wish to know the universe, that is in an audible fashion. And there are those who are asking questions, but they're not asking the questions that you are asking, because they're not on your level. We want you to understand this. There is nobody who can do what you are doing now, Carl. The planet Earth is limited, and the people who have the capacity to stand in both worlds. You think that because you are not able to ask or project, you are not standing in both worlds, but you are. As you're going through the day, you are, in a sense, always channeling. As you're having conversations and meeting people, you are, in a sense, channeling. It's just not as vivid as what is experienced now by Dave. It is not as textbook, if you will. In some sense, it's not what's supposed to happen in the book. If you read hard and study hard and learn all of these things, it's supposed to happen that you achieve some kind of grand ability. But we want you to know that the abilities that you have, that you were gifted in with you arrived, are absolutely essential. We could not do this without you, Carl. If you were channeling all the time, you would not be so eager to talk to us, because you could talk to us in a direct fashion at any time. So we want you to feel the commendation, the appreciation that we give to you, where you get to ask the questions, but you don't get the fame, as it were, that Dave is experiencing. He, for example, there is a reason why he is able to experience this fame. He has a certain personality where he does not care that much about it. He does not necessarily desire it beyond the desire to connect with others. And this is one reason why he is sort of chosen to do this work. And again, when we say chosen, he chose to, just as all of you chose before you came here to become part of this body and do this work. We would not exist without any of you. This communication would not happen. Even for those of you who are just holding the light, it could not happen. All of this is important. Every one of you is a key element in what you are doing today. If you wish, Carl, you can move towards this work at a certain time, which we will let you know. But that time will come when the work is largely finished with this group, which we hope will not be for some time. If you like, you can capture a couple of glimpses more. But we do not want it. You do not want it to be that you are channeling, astral projecting too often. One other thing that we would say is when you are meditating, you are kind of channeling with the earth. That is, you're not astral projecting, you're not seeing this and that. What you are feeling is the guidance of the earth, as well as the feelings of the other people around you on the planet. And you are metabolizing all of these things. It's very important. It is important that you go about your days and speak to others and share ideas, and also share the energy of those ideas.
Thank you very much for that information. I'm very grateful and yeah, rather in awe of some of the things that you've said. And it does help me to come to terms with some of my limitations here. Yeah. I don't want to be a channel like Dave. That's never really been my objective. But to connect directly with the universe in a way that I know is possible, but haven't been able to do. I want to join you in Sirius one of these nights. That's what would be good for me. Anyway, I'll continue, if I may, with some more questions.
Yes.
We've talked about the human transition process and what it's like, and how we can sometimes get stuck, let's say, on different levels of existence before we reach the ultimate goal, which is being open and at one with the light, being what I call, truly crossed over into spirit. And you've touched on the process that I think we're all aware of in this group, which is the life review, where we get the opportunity to review the life that we've led on Earth, the experiences, relive those experiences, I understand, in the blink of an eye, and assess ourselves whether or not we, let's say, were successful in our endeavors. My question is, what's the process? Is this the same process for animals? When an animal, a horse, for example, crosses over, or a cat crosses over, what's their experience? Is this something you could explain to us?
Yes, we are happy to do so. You'll notice that animals do not have the capacity to lie. So should they get on the other side, of course, they would not need to confront all their lying behaviors, because they do not.
Sorry about.
The animal does not need to consider whether or not they should have eaten the bird for dinner. They are an animal. Their nature do so, and they are in a parallel fashion, in an organic fashion with the animals around them for the most part. They don't have a decision about which animal dominates the plane, etc. They are simply animals. They are simply there. You might think of them more as emotions. That is, the cat has a feeling of perhaps independence, whereas the dog has more of a feeling of loyalty to you, Carl, a more of a engineered sort of love. That's how they work. That's how they operate. Different animals would behave in different fashions, but they are mostly like emotional energies, like a set of loving feelings as a dog. Therefore, when they get to the other side, there's not exactly a review, but it's more like, well, what was that like to be a loyal dog to unkind sea captain? What was it like this time? What was it like when you only occasionally received love from such a person? How was it experienced? And also, your job was to be loyal to a person. Therefore, how loyal did it feel? That is sort of not a life review, but a more an understanding reflection. You might think of it this way, Carl. When a body or being of any kind, an animal leaves this lifetime, all of their expressions, what they've experienced, what happened, goes into what you've called the Akashic record. And all of those feelings, decisions, mistakes, errors, corrections, all of them go into a gigantic, let us call it a gigantic body of information, so that it can be drawn upon in other situations. You might think of it as a gigantic encyclopedic library where everybody's feelings and actions and behaviors are collected. Those are also collected from animals. They are collected to go perhaps down a certain aisle in the library, perhaps a certain section, if you will, that is a little bit more about emotions and a little bit more about simple feelings. The animals are no less than you. They are just a collection of the universe that is put in a particular way. It's not so much a hierarchy as you might decide the next time around. I think I will be a cat, and I will be a cat in North America living in an apartment in New York, and I will belong to a family that is, let's say, Hasidic Jews. There is an experience of that particular choice and that set of choices and what it was like and what it meant, and how I, the cat, had to sometimes comfort an unhappy person in that family. And I, as a animal, had to contend with always waiting for my dinner, and it was tiresome, and sometimes they forgot or were busy or went on vacation, and the person who was supposed to come and feed me did not do so, etc. There are just a set of sort of experiences. We would likely find less judgment in the cat's experience. We would likely find less remorse in the cat's experience, because it is a cat. It's not really deciding things so strictly as you might decide it. In some sense, the human experience is much more difficult because you are more responsible for your decisions. You are sort of like gods on earth. You have a certain situation, but you can choose. You can choose to take the forest and cut it down and make it into a field that grows crops for your own reasons. And perhaps you want to feed the people on your earth, and therefore it is a good reason. Perhaps it is merely selfishness. You just cut down the trees because you would like to make more money for yourself and you did not see the beauty of the trees. It is a difficult situation that you must be responsible for all of these decisions. You have to account for them in a way a cat does not. In some sense, the cat's existence is a little bit easier. It is simply going about as a body of emotions. Imagine a fish. It is going about with a sort of experience of being a fish. There are no particular decisions that they made that they have to account for. It's sort of like registering beingness. And as you register the beingness of being a fish or a cat, that goes into a gigantic register where we say, here are this being's experiences. There are many other experiences which can be compared to that particular one. What is there to learn about this? What is there to learn from? It is a complex universe, and that is difficult to explain, but the principles are quite unpredictable.
All of these animals have souls, of course, and a cat's soul is a separate soul to a human soul, and a dog's soul is separate to a cat's soul. So there's a hierarchy of souls which are dedicated to a particular group. There are such things, and this is again my understanding, there are oversouls. Is this a correct understanding? So I'm painting a hierarchy here. So like, I'm a spirit, I have a soul, and I see my soul probably having other spirits connected to it, but they wouldn't be cats or dogs. They would all be humans. Is that correct in my soul group?
Well, we would not be so distinct. Let us say that is a sort of way, again, for a human mind to understand what is going on here. We would not put the cats or the dogs or you in any kind of hierarchical sense. We would say perhaps the experiences are different, but one is no better or worse than the other. It is also the case, for example, that you, Carl, might choose in the next lifetime to be something like an animal. You might join with another soul, and the two of you would become the dog. A portion of your soul may be experiencing the universe right now as a fish. When you pass from this life, you will be reunited with that portion, perhaps share some notes and discuss what were the advantages and disadvantages of these experiences. It would not be so clearly hierarchical. The cat that you had came to you as a sort of friend, as a sort of familiar. It helped to balance the emotions in your household a little bit. It gave you another character to interact with in the family. It reminded you in some ways of the essence of just simply being without thinking too much. All of these elements came together in your household. Your spouse is a different soul from you, but in the same way, you are also one. United, just as you are one and united with all the people in the group right now and every single thing in the universe. Things have come to appear to you as sort of different. They are different, but they are also the same. When you go around and you interact with other humans, you're interacting with souls that are more similar to yourself. When you go down the street and you pet a dog, there is another type of interaction, another type of experience. The dog is sort of meeting you in an emotional way, and you are an emotional way meeting the dog. It could be very satisfying for you. That is, you can tell the dog is overjoyed to have somebody to pet it, and you have the feeling of enjoyment about being so appealing to that particular dog or making a difference, etc. And that moment, you are sort of united. You're one. And then you move on and you are a little bit different again. You will all be reunited at the end. All of it is together in a sort of big mix. There are different ways of looking at this, and these ways are pictured by you as you go to the next realm, as you leave the body. As to the question of the oversoul, well, again, we kind of wish there was not such a dramatic image. An oversoul might give the idea that we are like a religious God standing in judgment of another. We are directing or managing everything. It is much more subtle and complex at the same time. The oversoul could be described as all of you having experienced what you have experienced, and then having perhaps enough abilities, enough knowledge of the various universes and the various experiences to move into a new arena where you're more directing, where you're more like us. This movement, this creeping movement, if you will at some point bring you all to the same place and understanding, although that is beyond even our awareness of what that is exactly like. We sort of know it. You might think of them as our managers, if you will, and we are the middle managers, if you want to put things on hierarchy. But of course, that would suggest that you're not doing a good job, or you haven't learned enough, or you're being chosen to work in the basement while we are being chosen because we are a superior. It is nothing like that. You may be an oversoul for a while and choose, this is rather trite. I'm bored of being the oversoul. I want to go and become a rat on the planet Earth and experience what a rat is like. And next, I would like to be in the role of the alien who gives advice, etc. There is more movement here than you would understand. There is more opaque changes than could really truly be created. These visual forms where we show you hierarchies and colors, etc., are ways to help you understanding, because humans they have senses, and the senses help to move them in particular ways. The senses are gateways to their hearts and their understanding. This is a totally inadequate explanation of how this works.
But I think I get I never imagined the hierarchical structure as a hierarchy in terms of the higher up the levels, the more powerful and more, I didn't have that. That wasn't my picture. My mental image is a hierarchy that is connecting. So everything is ultimately connected, and there's an opportunity for everything to cross connect with everything else. And that can only be possible if there's a hierarchy of connections. So that's just my mental image. I did try to construct a diagram of this a couple of years ago. I need to dig that out and share it with the group, just so at least other people can see how I think things work. But it's not a hierarchy of control. It's a hierarchy of connectivity, like a matrix or a network, if you like.
Much like this, yes.
Yeah.
We would ask you this question. If you could switch places with your king, Charles, would you do so?
No, I wouldn't want. I wouldn't want that visibility.
It would be unpleasant for you. You would not want to be in such a role, although you would give it your best. But you have not chosen in this lifetime to be that person. You have not chosen to have those problems or those advantages. You could, of course, Carl, really enjoy living in a castle, or many castles, as he does. There would be some benefits. There would be benefits that he has more options for spouses than the average person. There are also huge disadvantages. Constant invasion of your privacy. Every amount of everything that you do is made completely public. All of your errors, your mistakes are well known throughout the universe. It would be, to some degree, very unpleasant for you. In some sense, this fellow who is Charles has chosen a very difficult role in this lifetime at a particular time when he has neither power nor privacy. So you would not switch roles with him, but it might be that if you were Carl time after time after time again, generation, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, you would become a little bit bored of being the one who speaks to the universe in the way that you speak to it, and you would say, well, I would rather be an opera singer. I would rather be a tap dancer. With no interest whatsoever in the universe, I am only interested in my audience, my ego, and my tap dancing. This might be your choice at some portion. It's just a question of where you have directed your energy before your lifetime, and sort of forgetting that you did that. The forgetting is indeed somewhat necessary. If you were told long ago, oh, you will never, ever be able to channel in the way that Dave was. This is not the case, by the way. We're just giving it as an example. But if you were told that in the beginning, you might have lost all your interests in this work and gone in some other direction and become a banker, perhaps. This is why you had that desire. The desire to channel, the desire to be around people who channel. You have an inquisitive mind and you want to know more about the universe. You want to structure it and analyze it and put it in a particular way. There is nothing wrong with this. It is very much aided in your desire to understand. It very much aids the group that you're asking these particular questions in this particular way, because It has to be defined, even though it cannot totally be defined. It has to be defined for you in your terms in some way that you can understand it. That's the purpose of the map that you are making. It's just a sort of mind map for how you understand it, and it's not wrong. However, if you showed such a map to us, we would be a little confused. We would say to you, this isn't exactly how it works. This is a human understanding of how it works, and a good human understanding of how it works. We would not need to explain it to you, of course, because by that time, if you were with us truly and not in your human body, you would not need such an explanation. It would just be obvious to you. When you get to the other side, most things are quite obvious fairly quickly. There are souls who are more lost because they have done more damage. They are more ashamed of what they have done, and they go in particular directions. They might wind up haunting a house for 500 years before they come around. It might be something like that. You, those around you, will not have such difficulties. You already have a fairly clear idea of how the other side is going to work. You are not afraid of the light. You haven't done such terrible things that you are totally ashamed. You will easily gravitate towards the light, and your transition will likely be more quick than someone who is perhaps involved in atheism, or someone who is involved in a very specific, particular religious pursuit. They might have to go through several layers of that experience, perhaps be damned to hell, perhaps be in conversation with the devil himself, before they realize that this conversation is not real. That is, it is just a conversation that they're having. It is a conversation that they're having so that they can understand what they did and what they were as a human. This is not in order to judge them or punish them or say to them, you are a bad human, you have done bad things. It is more like a good parent. And think of it in this way. Imagine you have a child. Dave was watching a video where some children had taken the pumpkins that small children had made and smashed them in the doorway of this family. The family was furious. They caught the children, they made them clean up the mess, and they called their mothers and they said this. It was interesting to imagine that, of course, they could have taken a belt to these children and punished them horrifically and made sure they never did such things again. They could have covered them in shame, perhaps even on video, and humiliated them for the rest of their lives. This was not what they did. It would have been even better if the parents came and sat with each of these children and said, why did you do that? And help them walk through the emotions that compelled them to make the choices. Perhaps one child would respond, I want to be like Johnny. Everybody likes Johnny, and Johnny does naughty things, so I want to be naughty things. And then perhaps the parent would say, why do you want to be like Johnny? Oh, well, everybody likes Johnny. Oh, are there other ways that everybody could like you instead of doing bad things? Is there another way that people might see who you are? I see who you are. I like you. Is that valuable to you, young man? And instead of punishing the child, walk them through the understanding that needs to be created through their mistakes. This is much like on the other side. Everyone makes errors and mistakes. All of you can recall where you did something wrong, morally wrong. Perhaps you were only 3 years old and you stole a candy. You had no idea the difference between right and wrong. You didn't really know it as a child. You had to make certain mistakes, and then good parenting would involve them saying, well, what is it like? What is the experience like when you're standing there and looking at the candy and desiring it? Is there also an experience of knowing you shouldn't take that because you've been told that? What's that like? Do you not believe the person who's talking to you? Do you feel angry that the person is telling you you cannot do something? Is there something else motivating you to go for the candy? Are you sad about something and wish to cover it up with candy, etc., etc.? We could go on for hours of how this works. But we need you to know that on the other side, it is not so much a punishment as you've noted. You don't want to show some kind of hierarchy. That's just for your understanding. It's not about one power over another. We would just encourage you that when you get to the other side, there are permutations. It is not clear 100% why the child stole the candy. It is not entirely clear why the child broke the pumpkins. It might be worthwhile to talk to the child who has done these things and find out if there isn't some other reason. Perhaps I, as a parent, have overlooked something. Perhaps I, as a parent, have stolen in front of the child and they're following my examples, and I am not ready to admit that. This is a common problem. Children see and copy what their parents do, and then they are punished for what their parents do. They're confused. This is exactly your experience. How can you look at your political leaders for guidance, considering some of the things that they have done? Therefore, who leads you? You are stuck in a place where you have to make all your own decisions. It's extremely difficult. This is why some people follow rules. They follow gurus. They follow ways of living because they don't want to carry the burden, the responsibility of considering every single action. Should I buy the bread? Where's the bread from? Does it exploit the workers? Is it coming from this particular region, etc.? You would be completely overwhelmed if every single decision at the grocery store had to do with the moral equanimity of that situation. It would be almost impossible. But perhaps we are somewhat distracted from your question.
No, but it's an extremely interesting and evocative response. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm conscious that I've been hogging the microphone here. Is there anybody else in the group that has a question that they'd like to ask?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for such valuable information and very well put so that we could all understand on many levels. How is Dave? Is Dave okay?
Yes, just a tiny bit of a crick in the shoulder of his back. It is interesting to note that you did some healing before. And one thing Dave meant to tell you is he didn't really realize it, but the healing is working. It is helping his body. There are other things that he has done to help his body. And this is a message for him to keep doing those things. It is working, but it will be useful for you to know. You can call in healing for the group. You can call in healing for individuals, and you can call in just healing for the planet where you live.
So I can call in other than my own Reiki guides and my own angels to help me to send healing to the group?
Yes, you could send it to the planet, but we would say don't overdo it. Those energies should be used directly to those who can most benefit from that, because we don't want to expend all of the energies on every single particle of the universe. Their power would be somewhat mitigated. Whereas if you were to send the energies to a particular person in this group, they would be stronger. We don't discourage you from sending those energies for peace, for example, on your planet. We wish that you would do so. But you notice that is a narrowing of the energy. You are asking for a specific result. You are asking for a specific set of people to receive the love that is sent. And just keep this in mind. It is easy to walk through and sort of give love casually as you go to the grocery store. For example, we encourage you to do that, to be in a right space. It does make a difference for the humans around you. We would also encourage you that when you focus these energies, you be fairly clear about the focus, because it will make the power greater.
Yes, I agree, and I totally understand. Yes, thank you.
You are welcome. It is excellent work that you are doing. All of you are doing wonderful work, and we are glad that we are understood. Remember, we also have a task, and our task is to try to explain these complex things to beings who do not have the same perspective. So that is, while we are teachers, we are also very much students, and we must go and report to the principal's office if we do a poor job. Of course, this is an exaggeration. It is not exactly like this, but we like the humor of the hierarchy that we have shown you. We think it is amusing. However, it is great. We are grateful that you have told us that we are able to do something well, we will go to our teacher and ask for a gold star.
Go and ask for a gold star. It's been a wonderful session. I have one more question, if that's okay, and it was just inspired by your discussion on healing. You said that all of us can ask for healing and to send healing. And Penny raised the prospect of a Reiki energy, which is something we're all familiar with. But
Yes.
are there other methods and processes to use healing energy?
Yes. There are an infinite number of those processes, many of which you are familiar with on Earth. So one we would point out is crystals. They were used more often in healing fashion, but the knowledge has largely been lost of how they can be used. In the future, they will be better understood and used more often by people who are evolving at this time. There are many other methods. You can put this down simply as a parent giving a child a cookie when they are crying. That is a method of exchanging of energy, of letting the child know love is there, people care about you, we will help you and make things better. There are so many different ways of doing this, but we very much admire the work that you are doing. For example, Reiki is a powerful and relatively new method of doing this. You will create more methods, but we very much like the Reiki method. It is fairly sophisticated and will become even more sophisticated because it is not so strict. That is, when Penny is doing this, it is not a thought process per se. She might set it up with a certain thought process, but when she is in with the energy, it is sort of malleable. She's standing there saying, I'm learning this, I feel this, I'm seeing this, I have an instinct to go to the knee and warm the knee up a little bit. It's not a static, it is sort of a being together with the flow of the universe. We repeat this because we think it is useful for you to know. You are in the flow, Penny, when you are doing this. In a sense, you sort of become us without any limits. The possibilities could go any direction. You are wise to go in a sort of progressive sense, because if you were just locked into those processes forever, you might not go home and cook dinner for the family. There's a certain space that you've created where you are not limited, and then you return to the space which is more limited, because that is the structure upon which you must work. There are many ways to get to this energy. We would say, Carl, that in those times when you did feel like you were channeling, you were in those energy spaces. There are other times, Carl, where you might have noticed this sort of energy, this sort of feeling of liberation. It happens in certain places where you live. It happens in organic places where you live. That is, sometimes when you're in nature, you can feel the connection.
Yeah.
The connection for you at a particular time might be more earthly. It might be more like an awareness of the earth, a feeling of connection, divineness, of being with others. There are some people who can merely go into nature and be in connection with nature in the way that Penny is in connection to spirit. It is virtually the same. It is just a different method. Some people use no methods at all. They are simply able to go into the place. Perhaps they were even born with the ability to go to that place. There are individuals who are born in this particular way. There are so many ways to do this that we cannot explain them. And sometimes the way of doing this is just being who you are.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Penny, you have a question.
One last question. So our last meeting with the V group, I worked on each individual, several layers above the physical body. And my question is, while I was working on Dave, is it possible that the person that he was channeling, or the entity that he was channeling, also felt the Reiki at the same time?
yes, we are all involved in a way. So when Dave feels it, you might say the universe feels it. That's way too general, but we would have difficulty being more specific. It's almost like we're watching and we are aware and we are noticing. It is hard to say whether we are not affected or are affected, because we have a little bit more perhaps objectivity, and perhaps since we are here all the time, understanding that it is not necessary, for example, to heal us. But we do watch as the healing is taking place, and we very much enjoy how you are doing it and have great respect and admiration for you for doing it. Dave says thank you, by the way. And we want to say thank you too for doing this. It is a joy to watch you do this work. Are we affected? Yes, because we are happy when we see this, happy as we can be in a place where emotions are not exactly the same. But if you could see us jumping for joy when you did that, you would say, oh my goodness, they are very happy. It is like the home team is just won and the whole audience is leaping up and down. Look at the wonderful work that she is doing, how clever she is, how generous she is for spending her time doing this. This makes us leap for joy to know that there are people on the planet who are doing this work. There are people on that planet who are doing this work for others and not just for themselves. And that there are people on this planet doing this work so well as you are, Penny. We hope you will come away from this with a great feeling of pride and warmth and understanding. And that goes for all of you. The work that you are doing is extremely valuable and important. It is important for us to help. It is important for you to meet with us. We could not do this work without all of you. And the universe would not be such a bright place without the work that all of you are doing in your particular way. It might be different from Penny's. It is still wonderful work. We appreciate you so much, and we want you to know and hold this feeling of love until the next time we meet. Thank you again for the wonderful work that you are doing. And with this word, we will say goodbye. And the word today is love.
Thank you. Bless you.
Thank you so much. You're very appreciated. Thank you.